The suitcase hit the front steps before Adiz did. Not thrown, placed. That was the part she would never forget. Her mother-in-law had carried it to the door with both hands, set it down like something being returned, smoothed her skirt, and walked back inside. No argument. No cruelty. Just the cold efficiency of a decision already made. Adiz stood on the porch of the house she had lived in for 3 years. 8 months pregnant. Raining. No umbrella. Battery at 4%. 3 contacts who might answer: her husband, not picking up, her sister, an ocean away, and 1 unsaved number she didn't remember storing. She pressed call. A man answered. Low. Certain. 1 word. She didn't know she had just reached the most dangerous man in Seoul. She didn't know he had been watching her for months. She didn't know that the moment he heard her voice, her life had already changed. But what happened next changed everything. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure you're subscribed, because this one gets intense. Here is what 3 years of trying looks like. It looks like a woman who learned a language that didn't belong to her because she loved a man who did. Who gave up a graduate architecture scholarship, the kind that arrives once and does not return, because her husband said we'll figure something out, and she believed him. Who cooked recipes she was never asked to learn, attended family events she was never fully welcomed at, and kept the peace so consistently she began to mistake it for happiness. Adiz Obichion was 29. She had come to Seoul for love and stayed through every difficulty because she had decided that love was a decision, and she was going to keep making it. She had made the house in Suwon beautiful, cream linen curtains, a small herb garden by the steps, her taste and his mother's tradition carefully braided into every room. She had never been thanked for it. Mrs. Cheon's son he had never used the word disapproval. She was too precise for that. She used silence instead. The pause before answering. The slow nod over Adiz's cooking that said it's fine in a tone that meant it was not. Over 3 years, she communicated complete rejection without producing a single quotable sentence. On the morning everything ended, she placed the document on the breakfast table. Adiz came downstairs at 7, moving carefully the way you move at 8 months pregnant. The document was already there, positioned like something planned long in advance. The house has always been in our family name, Mrs. Cheon said, hands folded. A lawyer has prepared the clarification. There is a residence hotel noted on the 2nd page. No raised voice. No cruelty for its own sake. Just logistics. Adiz called Juno 4 times while she packed. He didn't answer. His voicemail was cheerful, the voice of a man expecting no bad news. She packed what she could carry. The things that were hers beyond argument. Mrs. Cheon set the suitcase on the top step. Smoothed her skirt. Went inside. The lock turned. The rain started. Adiz stood on the porch of the home she had made beautiful and understood, finally, that she had never been building a home. She had been decorating someone else's. She scrolled to the unsaved number. Press call. I don't know who you are, she said. But I need help. A pause, not surprise but decision. Where are you? She told him. Don't move. I'm coming. Across the city, in a building with no public address, Ryu Songwon set down his work and looked at his phone. His private line had 4 registered contacts. 4 people in the world had this number. There were no wrong numbers in his world. Except, apparently, this one. He had her traced before the call ended. Knew her name before he knew she was pregnant. Knew her name, her address, her husband's name, and the fundraiser in Maple Goose 6 months ago, where she had spoken about building in communities told they weren't worth building in, and he had not been able to look away. He had told himself it was habit. He noticed things. He had her looked into anyway, filed it under not your concern, and checked that file quietly, once a week, for 6 months. He had drawn a line and stayed behind it. She was married, living a life, and he was not the uncomplicated kind of man she deserved. Then she called. Rain. 8 months pregnant. Locked out. Don't move. I'm coming. Adiz had nearly talked herself into leaving when the black car pulled up. She had stood on that step for 11 minutes and built 3 plans. She had not moved. Ryu Songwon stepped into the rain without hurrying, without adjusting to it, the composure of someone who had decided long ago that inconvenience was beneath his attention. Tall in the way that occupied space. He crossed to her and looked at her face first. Kept looking there. You called me. Not a question. I didn't mean to. I don't know who you are. Something shifted in him, not amusement, but its close relative. He lifted her suitcase with one hand. My car is warm. You look like you've been cold for a while. She got in. He closed the door with the deliberate click of someone who handles things gently, not from softness, but because precision, applied carefully, is its own form of control. Seoul moved past the windows, enormous, indifferent. She was in a car with a stranger. 8 months pregnant. Almost no money. Not afraid. She noted this last fact with some confusion. What's your name? Ryu Songwon. You can look me up. What you find will be enough to decide if you want out at the next light. That's unusual. I'm an unusual person to have called. She didn't look him up. The penthouse was on the 40th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The city below like a circuit board blinking. Room at the end of the hall. Food in the kitchen. Press 1 if you need anything. Why are you doing this? Because you called and you needed help. We can discuss the rest tomorrow. He moved toward the elevator. I don't take things for free. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a room. We can argue about it when you've slept. The elevator closed. In the bedside drawer, she would not discover until morning, was a photograph, printed kept. A charity event, 6 months ago. She was at the podium, mid-sentence. She had never met this man. The photograph was there anyway. She found it reaching for her charger. Sat with it in the morning light. Set it on the counter and waited. He returned that evening. Saw it between her hands. Didn't flinch. You were at a fundraiser 6 months ago. You had me photographed. I had myself photographed at the event. You were in it. A pause. I kept it. That's a careful way of describing something genuinely alarming. He sat across from her, no performance of innocence. You spoke for 4 minutes. About building in places told they aren't worth building in. He looked at the photograph. I couldn't look elsewhere. So you investigated me. Yes. And kept my photograph. Yes. Should I be frightened? He considered it. Probably. Most people who know who I am are. I don't know who you are. And I'm still sitting here. I noticed that, he said. I'm deciding if it's courage or stupidity. In my experience, he said, those are usually the same decision, made by different kinds of people. Days passed. She learned his rhythms, early departures, reliable returns. She learned that a doctor appeared without being requested. That the refrigerator restocked itself with things she'd mentioned once in passing. She said she missed bitter leaf soup, and 2 days later the ingredients appeared, a recipe already on the kitchen tablet. She mentioned wanting to improve her Korean reading. A tutor arrived Tuesday and Thursday. He never framed any of it as a gift. He arranged things the way he arranged everything, as though care were a logistical problem and he was simply very good at logistics. This was harder to protect herself against than she'd expected. On the 5th day, a lawyer appeared in the lobby. Sent by Mrs. Cheon. He hadn't been permitted upstairs, but the papers arrived anyway, sealed, heavier than their contents should have felt. A legal petition requesting that upon birth, the child be registered under Cheon family guardianship, citing Adi's living situation and criminally adjacent associations. 5 days. They had found her. Already weaponized the address. Her legs went. She sat on the floor, not dramatically, but with the deliberateness of a woman who has decided the floor is the most honest place available. Songwon found her there. Sat beside her without comment. Read the document. His jaw tightened. Nothing else moved. She can't do this. No. But she's trying, which means she's afraid. Of what? He looked at her. That you're not as easy to remove as she thought. Adiz stared at the petition, her son's future being legislated by a woman who had never used her name. Then she's right to be afraid, she said. Something settled in his expression. Something that looked, just barely, like the beginning of a smile. Juno arrived on a Tuesday. She didn't know how he found the address. He looked exactly the same, familiar face, measured contrition she recognized from every previous shortfall. He took in the penthouse and decided not to comment. Adiz. I'm so sorry. I know you are. He looked at her belly. Love crossed his face, real love, the complicated, insufficient kind. You should be home. I was home. Your mother changed the locks. Someone was in the room. Near the kitchen. Saying nothing. Completely present. If I come back, she said. She had been building to this for days, had known what the question would reveal. Will you tell your mother, legally and permanently, that this baby is a Cheon and also mine? Equally. Both. Without negotiation. Juno looked at her. The silence lasted 1 second. Maybe 1.5. That was the answer. Thank you for coming. Adiz, you should go. He stood a moment longer. Glanced once at Sungwon. Then left. Sungwon brought water without being asked. How did you know before I did that he wouldn't answer? Because I know what a man looks like when he's choosing his comfort over the person who deserves better. A pause. I've been that man. What happened? A woman needed someone to choose her clearly. I chose silence because silence felt safer. He looked at the table. She left. I didn't blame her. I've spent a long time since then deciding what kind of man I want to be when it matters again. And? Still working on it. Why did you keep the photograph? Because something understood that you were going to matter before my mind had the language for it. That's not a normal thing to say. I don't have a more comfortable version. I'm not asking for comfortable. I'm asking for true. Then that's it, he said. That's the true one. She looked at him for a long moment, this careful, dangerous man who had given her more honesty in one conversation than she'd received in 3 years of marriage. She looked away first. But the warmth in her chest didn't follow. The petition escalated. A story appeared online. Her name, his name, the words criminally adjacent associations positioned like a verdict. He saw it before she did. She could tell by the quality of his stillness at breakfast. How bad? Gone by noon. That's not what I asked? Bad enough. I'm accounting for it now. It disappeared in 4 hours. She didn't ask how. Certain questions, she was learning, were answered most clearly by their results. That night she couldn't sleep, not from fear, but from the quieter, more dangerous thing growing toward a man she hadn't planned to meet. That feeling frightened her more than any petition. She was still awake at 2 when her body made the decision her mind had been avoiding. The pressure started low. Then lower. Then unmistakable. Not yet, she said in the dark. We agreed not yet. Her son had a different timeline. She reached the counter before the second contraction. Gripped it. Breathed through it. When it passed, she pressed one on the kitchen phone with a hand that was almost steady. Someone answered on the first ring. He had not been sleeping. She filed this away. It's time. A beat. Don't move. I'm coming. He was in the kitchen in under a minute. Fully dressed. He assessed her in one look, fast, complete. How far apart? 3 minutes. Maybe less. Her coat was on before she'd processed him reaching for it. Hospital bag at the door. He took her hand and didn't let go. In the elevator. I'm scared. She hadn't meant to say it. I know. That's not reassuring. I'm not going to tell you not to be scared. That's a waste of time. He looked at her. I've got you. That part you can count on. She counted on it. 9 minutes to the hospital. He had her through the emergency doors before anyone had registered the car stopping, both hands free, one steady at her back, present in the specific way of someone who has decided that nothing else matters more than this moment. They tried to direct him to the waiting room. He stood in the corridor and did not move, no confrontation, no raised voice, just a stillness that communicated clearly this was not a negotiable point. He held her hand through the worst of it. Didn't say it will be fine. Said, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Her son arrived at 3:17 in the morning. She received him onto her chest with shaking arms and held him with the grip of someone who has fought toward a moment through months of fear and stubborn, unrelenting hope. She pressed her nose to his head and breathed him in. "Emeka," she whispered. "Emeka Sianwoo. We made it. Do you hear me? We made it." When the door opened, Songwon walked in before his face was ready. She caught him unguarded, someone who had not anticipated how this would land. He crossed to the bed. Looked at her first. Then at the baby. He looked for a long time. She watched something rearrange in him, quietly, without ceremony, the way foundations shift before you see it in the walls. He held out one finger. Emeka closed his fist around it. "Hello?" someone said. Quietly. Just that. 3 weeks later, she brought Emeka home. She had stopped calling it his penthouse in the second week. She noted this and filed it under examine later. The nursery had been prepared before she'd asked, converted quietly, the way he did everything. Mrs. Cheon's petition collapsed on a Thursday. No announcement. It simply ceased to be consequential. A transfer document arrived by email. The Suwon property moved into a holding company. His. She found him at the window that evening. "You moved the house?" "Yes." "Without asking me?" "Yes." "You can't arrange me like a piece on a board." "You're right. I overstepped." She had prepared for deflection. "Then why?" "Because she used your home as a weapon. The place you'd made beautiful. I found that intolerable." "The scholarship." He went still. "Someone submitted a second application after mine lapsed." "Was that you?" 4 seconds. "It was a reasonable investment." Songwon. "Yes. It was me." She sat down. "I don't know what to do with you." "You don't have to do anything with me. I want to be the person you call on purpose, not by accident, not from desperation. Because you chose it, knowing what I am." She looked at him, the man who had come into the rain without being asked, held her hand through labor without making it about himself, arranged everything and never presented a bill. She reached out and touched his face. "Don't make me regret trusting you. That," he said, "is the one promise I will keep." She kissed him, not dramatically, but the way you do when you've been circling something real and finally decide to stand still inside it. "Emeka has your name in him. You did that before I asked?" "Because he should know where he belongs," she said. "In both directions." Then on a Thursday evening, the elevator arrived with the wrong sound. The man who stepped out was older than Songwon, dressed with the precision that announces power without announcing itself. Songwon moved immediately, placing himself between this man and at ease. "Your father sends his regards." Pleasant voice. Empty underneath. And a question. "Does she know what happened to the last woman you tried to protect?" "The full version, not the one you tell yourself." The room went quiet. She looked at Songwon. Watched something cross his face, too fast to name, but she felt it before she could. Not anger. Not deflection. Guilt. "You should go," Songwon said. Controlled. But underneath it, something she had never heard from him, something that sounded like fear. The man smiled. Found the elevator without being shown. The doors closed. Songwon turned. Stopped before the first word. And in the way he stopped, she understood, what was coming was not the comfortable version of anything. "Tell me," she said, holding her son. "Whatever it is. There are things I haven't told you. Things I should have." He looked at her. "Hear them. Then decide." She tightened her hold on Emeka. "Then tell me," she said. If you made it here, you know why Adiz stayed, why Songwon is complicated in the way real things are, and why Emeka Sianwoo made everything matter more. Like, share, and follow if this story found you. Drop your thoughts in the comments, we read every one. We'll be back. Don't go far.